Hi again, guys, and welcome to another replay cast. Today we have Shadowfighter in the Oni. Shadowfighter, of course, featured on the channel before in his Cromwell B. This time, in his Oni on Pilsen, it's an entirely tier 7 match. So, of course, there's not going to be any tier 6s, no tier 5s, nothing, no lower tiers or even higher tiers, all tier 7. And this is a very good kind of matchup for him. Plenty of things to blast in the face with HE. And it's in a small map. Well, relatively small map with plenty of cover. Because it might as well be a city map, this one. And that's good because he can pull back behind cover and reload without being in too much danger. Getting a little bit of a push from friendly a.k.a. 90 there, but to no avail because this thing, unless you're going down a particularly steep slope, you're not really going to go any faster than 25 kilometers an hour, which is the top speed of this thing. Positioning himself on this corner to hopefully get some shots at anyone either crossing or poking out there. Enemy KV-13 has been spotted on that corner, but is not poking very far out. Probably a wise decision considering there is an IS also watching. So Shadow's going to take the opportunity to go forward while the enemy heavies are distracted. Enemy Tiger P there, along with the KV-13. And yeah, this Tiger P is going to feel the HE to the face and not the KV-13. However, the KV-13 is still close enough to have his tracks made yellow by that shot. Angles up, bounces the return shot from the Tiger P, and he's loading a heat shell. Now this is going to be aimed for the little shoulders on the sides of the front of the Tiger P, because that will go through without too much trouble. And it does indeed. Tiger P was actually trying to be smart and put his gun barrel in front of the shoulder there, but didn't really work out. Ended up getting blapped for 693. Meanwhile, enemy Onis are, in fact, watching this side, and they just shoot the friendly Oni in the side as well. And then, bit unfortunate that didn't pen, because that was right in the upper side armor of the enemy Oni. Either a low roll on pen, or it was just angled enough so that it wouldn't pen. But this Oni then puts in a shot with premium AP with the smaller gun, the 105. Now, he might not have needed the premium AP there, but I can't say I blame him for using it either when you're faced with an Oni who's pretty much front on and slightly angled to you. So that even the standard AP can bounce there, and that was really high shot on the T-29, who does get the return shot into him. And the KV-3 just tracks him there, quite lucky as well, because if that had penned, he would be dead. But he's got a pretty decent crew, so he's going to get the tracks back up and reload in time to finish this T-28 off. With just enough damage to kill him as well. KV-3 bounces again, this time off the upper side armor, which was angled at just enough so then he would not pen, not in a million years. Now he's going to help this IS-2 on the corner here versus the remainders of the enemy heavies. But this T-71 for some reason thinks he's a heavy tank and rushes out to try and get through the door, but, well, that's what happens when you try to cross in front of a loaded Oni at point-blank range. Meanwhile, friendly Leo has been taken out by a combination of the T-29 and the E-25, who is now distracted by a Panther, and Shadow takes the opportunity to finish off. T-29 now poking to try and get another shot at either Shadow or the IS-2. Bounces off of Shadow's upper plate. And this IS-2 does get a shot into him. Low rolls, like 310. That's a really low roll for an IS-2 with the 122. But this IS-2 is going to be the source of some frustration for Shadow. And this is because this IS-2 is snapshotting everything. And he is going to miss a lot of shots, which he would probably have hit had he actually aimed. And we're going to see more evidence of this in just a moment. Meanwhile, Shadow asking his team if they can go back and reset, However, they're not really going to need to, because as Schado angles up here, the Crusader SP who is capping resets himself by leaving the cap. And now we're going to see this IS-2 try and poke around every now and then, while Schado side scrapes out and starts aiming up at the KV-3 who is advancing on the position and just blaps him in the face. Meanwhile, this IS-2 just tries to snapshot once again and ends up bouncing off Shado's armor instead. Luckily, the T-29 does also bounce off Schado, so no one dies there. And Schado voices his frustration with the IS-2, asking him to maybe aim and not snapshot all the time. Now finally it's just left to the enemy arty, and he's been spotted there, and the friendly IS to the left there is going to finish him off, and that is the game. Very nice and quick there, only about 6 minutes, and that was Shado's ace tanker with a steel wall and a high caliber to go with it. That was 3,500 damage, 4 kills, and 1,509 base XP. He does run a premium account, so that boosted his XP from 1,509 to 2,263 with no extra bonuses, so that's pretty nice. He also made 56,061 credits. He didn't use either his repair kit, medkit, or fire extinguisher that match, so he had no consumable resupply expenditure. He didn't have to spend that much on ammunition, only 10,000 spent, even though these shells are pretty expensive, and he did fire one of his premium heat shells at the Tiger P, and he ended up spending a few thousand on repairs as well, as most of his hit points were lost early on. However, I'm pretty sure that he'll be happy with that result, as blasting things in the face with this kind of gun is always nice and fun. It's always a good time. Although that said, this kind of tank really does rely on its team, and it's no different when it comes to the OI, because once you start getting... Well, this is even more so on open maps like, say, Prokhorovka, because this kind of tank is really slow, it turns slow, and it's really meant for kind of controlling the engagements down the corridor, much like this one, much like we saw in this match. He was able to use cover to hide a couple of weak spots, maybe get an angle a little bit and get enemies to shoot at armor that was angled at such a way that they wouldn't pen. So that's the use of this tank. But when you get onto open maps where people flank you, it really depends on your team. And when it's left and when it's all on its own, it cannot deal with multiple attackers, because they will end up swarming it and it will be destroyed. As it just does not have the reload, even with the stock, well, I say stock, but it's a pretty nice 105mm this also gets. When this thing gets swarmed, neither of the guns it has can deal with them, because they just don't have the DPM to deal with more than one tank, unless they're at a huge disadvantage in terms of position like they were here. Anyway, that's all from me. I might actually see if I can pick this thing up, because it does look like it would be pretty fun to play. And I'll see you guys on the next one.